A poor single dad saves a girl after a car crash, not knowing she's a millionaire who'll give him. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. The rain had been falling for hours, turning the old highway into a mirror of scattered headlights and swirling water. Ethan Cole gripped the steering wheel of his battered pickup truck, trying to see through the streaks on the windshield. His daughter, little Lily, was curled up in the back seat wrapped in a faded blanket, her tiny breaths fogging the window beside her. It was close to midnight, and Ethan was exhausted after a double shift at the garage. But he kept driving because tomorrow morning he had to be up by 6, pack Lily's lunch, and pray the landlord wouldn't knock again for rent he couldn't pay yet. His stomach tightened at the thought, but he forced himself to focus on the road. Just a few more miles, kiddo, he whispered, glancing at Lily in the mirror. She stirred, blinking sleepily. Daddy, I'm cold. Ethan reached back and tugged the blanket up to her shoulders. The heater had died months ago, and fixing it was at the bottom of a long list of repairs he never had time or money for. He offered her a tired smile. Almost home, sweetheart. Then came the sound. A screech. A metallic scream slicing through the storm. Ethan's eyes shot toward the intersection ahead. A black luxury sedan skidded out of control, hydroplaning across the wet asphalt before slamming sideways into a traffic pole. The impact shook the night, glass exploding across the pavement. Smoke began to rise from under the crumpled hood. Without thinking, Ethan slammed on the brakes. The pickup fishtailed before stopping crookedly near the guardrail. Daddy, Lily cried, gripping the back of his seat. Stay right here, he said sharply, a note of fear tightening his voice. Do not move, Lily. Do you hear me? She nodded, lip trembling. Ethan threw his door open and sprinted into the rain. Cold water slapped against his boots as he ran toward the wreck. The luxury car was mangled, the front end folded like paper. Through the shattered window, he could see a woman slumped over the steering wheel, long dark hair matted with rain, a thin trail of blood running from her temple. The air smelled like gasoline. Ma'am, Ethan shouted. No response. Another crack of lightning lit up the sky, revealing a thin line of smoke curling toward the roof of the car. His pulse spiked. He wedged his shoulder against the door and pulled, but it refused to budge. Rain soaked through his clothes, chilling him to the bone. Come on, come on. He braced his feet and yanked with everything he had. The door gave way with a groan. Reaching inside, he gently lifted the woman's chin. Her face was pale, delicate, too clean for this part of town. Her dress looked like something from a high-end boutique. She couldn't be older than her late 20s. Hey, stay with me, he murmured, even though she didn't respond. Her pulse fluttered under his fingers, faint but alive. Behind him, he heard Lily calling his name from the truck, fear breaking her voice, but the smell of gasoline grew stronger, and he knew he couldn't waste another second. He slipped his arms around the woman and pulled her out, cradling her against his chest as he backed away from the wreck. Rain pounded down, soaking both of them as he carried her towards safety. Daddy, Lily cried again, but Ethan didn't turn until he'd crossed the shoulder. And then, boom. A muffled explosion burst from the sedan, flames licking up the shattered windshield. Ethan flinched, shielding the unconscious woman with his body. For a heartbeat, everything was silent except the rain and the distant hiss of burning metal. He tightened his grip on her, his breath shaking. It's okay, he whispered, even though she couldn't hear him. You're safe now. He didn't know her name. He didn't know where she came from. He didn't know that the woman he had just saved was worth millions, came from a world he'd only ever seen on TV, or that rescuing her tonight would change every part of his and Lily's life. All he knew was that he had done what he hoped any decent person would do. And, as the flames rose behind him, he had no idea that this moment, this stormy, terrifying moment, was only the beginning. By the time the ambulance arrived, Ethan's heartbeat was still racing, his clothes soaked and clinging to him as he knelt beside the unconscious woman on the gravel shoulder. Paramedics took over quickly, shining flashlights into her eyes, lifting her onto a stretcher, asking rapid questions he barely heard. One of them turned to him and asked if he was the one who pulled her out. Ethan nodded, still catching his breath. "Sir, you probably saved her life," the medic said, but Ethan shook his head, brushing off the praise. "I just did what anyone should do." Lily ran to him, wrapping her little arms around his waist. Her blanket trailed behind her, soaked by the rain. "Daddy, is she going to be okay?" she whispered. Ethan looked at the stretcher being loaded into the ambulance, then at the flames dying down behind them. "I hope so, sweetheart." A police officer asked for his statement. Ethan gave it as best he could, still shaking from the adrenaline. But when the officer asked for his name and address, Ethan suddenly remembered the overdue rent, the broken mailbox, the stack of unpaid bills that made him feel smaller every time he looked at them. He hesitated. "Ethan Cole," he finally answered. "We live over on Pine Street." The officer nodded and wrote it down without judgment, but Ethan still felt a flush of embarrassment. His pickup truck looked even more worn out under the flashing lights, paint faded, bumper dented, a reminder of how much he could not fix. After the chaos settled, the officer told him he was free to go, and the ambulance pulled away toward the hospital. Ethan watched its red lights disappear into the storm before he picked up Lily and carried her back to the truck. As he buckled her in, she pulled something from her pocket. "Daddy, I forgot. I gave her this." She opened her small hand. In her palm was a crumpled drawing, smeared slightly by the rain. "Daddy and me," in shaky letters, a stick figure version of them holding hands under a dark sky. "I left it with her so she would not be scared," Lily said. Ethan stared at the drawing, surprised. "That was really kind of you, Lily." She smiled sleepily. "You told me we help people when we can." His chest tightened. Sometimes he wondered how he had ended up with a kid so pure, so gentle, despite all the hardship she had seen. He kissed her forehead and started the engine, hoping it would roar to life instead of sputtering out. Thankfully, it did. They drove home through the storm, and by the time they reached their small apartment, Lily was asleep. Ethan carried her inside, careful not to wake her, and laid her on their couch because the bedroom window leaked whenever it rained. He stared at the ceiling for a long moment, the sound of thunder distant now. He could still smell the gasoline, still feel the weight of the unknown woman in his arms. He hoped she survived. He hoped his actions mattered. The next morning came too quickly. Ethan dragged himself out of bed, made Lily a peanut butter sandwich, and walked her to school before heading to the garage. His boss was already in a bad mood, pacing around and complaining about the workload. "Cole, you are late," he barked. Ethan apologized, slipping into his coveralls as fast as he could. All morning he worked under the hoods of cars, pretending his muscles did not ache from last night's adrenaline. But every now and then, the scene replayed in his head. The crash, the flames, the woman's pale face, the smear of blood at her temple. Around noon, he took a break behind the garage, leaning against the brick wall. He wondered if the woman had woken up, if she was asking who saved her, if the hospital staff even remembered his name. He doubted it. People like him were forgettable, and the world she came from was far beyond anything he could imagine. He was a single dad with a failing truck and too many bills. She was someone who wore jewelry that cost more than his yearly income. Their paths had crossed for one terrifying moment, and that was all it would ever be. At least, that was what he believed. What he did not know was that at that very moment, miles away in a private hospital suite, a young woman with bandaged ribs was waking up with a crumpled drawing in her hand and an expensive designer dress still carrying the smell of gasoline. And she whispered one question to the nurse standing beside her bed. "Who saved me?" Amelia Hart woke to the soft hum of machines and the faint smell of antiseptic, her vision blurred by the bright morning light spilling through the large windows of the private hospital suite. Her body felt heavy, her ribs aching with every breath, and for a moment she could not remember why she was here. Then the memory struck her like a shock. The rain, the screech of tires, the pole rushing toward her windshield. Her pulse quickened. She pushed herself up slightly, wincing. A nurse hurried over. "Easy, Miss Hart. You were in an accident, but you are safe now." Amelia blinked, trying to ground herself, but her gaze dropped to something resting on the blanket beside her. A crumpled drawing, wrinkled and a bit smudged, lay there as if placed with care. She picked it up slowly. Two stick figures held hands beneath a stormy sky, and under them were the words "Daddy and me," written in uneven childlike letters. Amelia stared at it, confused. "What is this?" she asked quietly. The nurse smiled. "It was found with you when you arrived. A man pulled you from the wreck before the fire reached the engine. His little daughter put that drawing in your hand." The room seemed to tilt for a moment as Amelia absorbed the words. "A man saved me?" The nurse nodded. "Yes. The paramedics said he carried you all the way to the shoulder. He refused any attention, just made sure you were breathing. Then he left once police took his statement." Amelia swallowed hard. She had grown up surrounded by chauffeurs, bodyguards, executives, and people who shook her hand only because her last name held value. The idea that a stranger had risked his life for her, without wanting anything in return, made her chest ache in a way different from the injuries. "Did anyone write down who he was?" she asked. The nurse handed her a clipboard with the ambulance report. There, scribbled in hurried handwriting, was a name she had never heard before: Ethan Cole. No title, no company, no polished signature, just a name. Amelia traced the letters with her thumb. "I need to find him," she whispered, almost to herself. The nurse looked at her with gentle concern. "Miss Hart, you need rest. Your ribs are bruised, and you suffered a concussion." But Amelia shook her head slowly. "Someone risked his life for me. I cannot just lie here and do nothing." Meanwhile, across town, Ethan was back at the garage tightening a bolt under the hood of a sedan, pretending he was not thinking about the woman in the hospital. He replayed the moment he pulled her out, the heat of the small explosion warming his back, the weight of her limp body in his arms. He wondered whether she had woken up or if she was still unconscious. Then he remembered the drawing Lily had tucked into her hand, and he chuckled under his breath. "Lily, you and your big heart," he murmured. Back in the hospital, Amelia attempted to stand but nearly collapsed, forcing the nurse to help her back into bed. A few hours later, her assistant, Clara, burst into the room, red-faced and frantic. "Amelia, oh my goodness, I came as soon as I heard. Are you all right? The board is panicking. Your father is already preparing a statement." Amelia raised a hand tiredly. "Clara, stop. I am fine, but I need you to do something for me." Clara blinked. "Anything." Amelia handed her the drawing. "I need you to find the man who saved me, Ethan Cole, and I need you to find him today." Clara stared at the childlike illustration for a moment, and then at Amelia. "This was with you?" Amelia nodded. "His daughter gave it to me. I woke up holding it." Clara softened, her voice quiet. "You really want to meet him?" "I owe him my life," Amelia replied. "I need to look him in the eyes and thank him." Clara gave a small nod. "I will have the security team trace the incident report, the patrol logs, and the plate number the police mentioned. We will find him." Amelia leaned back into the pillows, clutching the drawing tightly. For the first time since waking, she felt grounded, not by the sterile room or the machines around her, but by a simple crayon drawing from a girl she had never met. She did not know yet how deeply this small act of kindness would change everything. All she knew was that somewhere in the city, a man named Ethan Cole had carried her out of the fire, and she was determined to find him. Clara worked fast, and by the next morning, she returned to the hospital suite with a tablet in hand and a half-triumphant smile. Amelia sat upright in her bed, the crumpled drawing resting on her lap like a fragile piece of truth she could not let go of. "Tell me you found him," Amelia said, her voice hopeful but edged with impatience. Clara nodded. "We found a match on the patrol logs and cross-checked the plate number from the dashcam footage taken by a patrol cruiser that responded to the crash. The truck belongs to an Ethan Cole. He works at a small auto garage on the east side." Amelia's breath caught. East side, that is not exactly a good neighborhood. Clara hesitated, lowering her voice. "It is one of the rougher areas, Amelia. The garage seems old, barely staying open. There are records of overdue bills, violations, and a landlord who has been trying to evict him for months. He is struggling." Amelia glanced down at the drawing again, her thumb brushing over the shaky letters. "He still stopped for me," she murmured. "He still went into that fire." She looked up. "I want to see him." "You should be resting," Clara reminded her gently. "Your father will panic if he finds out you left the hospital." "Your injuries, my injuries will heal," Amelia said, her voice firm. "But gratitude cannot wait. I want to thank him. Today." An hour later, after signing a discharge form that her doctor strongly advised against, Amelia slid carefully into the back seat of her SUV, wearing a simple blouse and soft cardigan to hide the bandaging around her ribs. She normally traveled with a driver, a polished look, and a prepared schedule, but today she instructed Clara to take the wheel and drive without announcing their destination to anyone. The city changed block by block as they moved farther from the bright storefronts and clean sidewalks. The east side was different. Buildings stood close together, some boarded up, graffiti curling across the faded brick. People walked with fast steps, hooded jackets pulled tight against the wind. When the SUV turned onto the street where the auto garage sat, Amelia felt her stomach tighten. The building was small, the sign faded, the lot cluttered with cars in various stages of repair. But she noticed something else. Despite the worn appearance, the place was alive. Tools clanged inside, and someone was humming. Off-key to a radio. Clara parked near the entrance. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. Amelia nodded and opened the door slowly, breathing through the pain that shot through her ribs. She stepped out, holding the drawing carefully, as if it might break. Inside the garage, Ethan was crouched under the hood of a sedan, his hands covered in grease. Lily sat on a stool nearby with a coloring book, kicking her feet back and forth. She looked up at the sound of footsteps and blinked when she saw Amelia standing in the doorway. "Daddy," she whispered loudly, tugging on his sleeve. "That is the lady from the car." Ethan straightened, startled, then quickly wiped his hands on a rag. For a moment, he looked almost embarrassed by the state of the place, then even more embarrassed by the oil stains on his shirt. "Miss Hart," he guessed, unsure. Amelia offered a small smile. "Yes, and I wanted to come thank you in person." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, uncomfortable with attention. "You do not need to thank me. I only did what anyone should have done." She stepped closer, feeling her pulse quicken. "But not everyone would have done it. You pulled me out of a burning car. You saved my life." She held out the crumpled drawing. "And your daughter, she gave me this." Lily gasped. "You still have it?" Amelia nodded. "It meant a lot to me when I woke up. I was scared, confused, and it was the first thing I saw. It made me feel safe." Ethan looked at Lily, who giggled shyly and hid her face behind the coloring book. "She likes to help," Ethan said gently. Amelia studied him for a moment. He looked tired, worn, but kind. The type of kindness that was quiet, unpolished, and real. "I would like to repay you," she said softly. "Both of you." Ethan stiffened immediately. "That is not necessary." But Amelia shook her head. "Maybe not necessary, but right." Clara stepped forward. "Mr. Cole, Miss Hart's family owns Hart Automotive. She wants to offer you." Ethan lifted a hand, stopping her. "I am not looking for charity." Amelia met his eyes, steady and sincere. "This is not charity. This is gratitude. And maybe something more." Ethan looked at her, uncertain, not knowing yet that this moment was the beginning of a shift, far bigger than either of them could predict. For a long moment, Ethan did not speak. The air inside the small garage felt thick, filled with the scent of motor oil, warm dust, and something else he could not name. Amelia stood quietly, clutching the drawing, waiting for him to say anything at all. Lily peeked over her coloring book, eyes wide, sensing something important was happening even if she did not understand it. Finally, Ethan exhaled and gestured toward the office door. "Maybe we should talk somewhere quieter." Amelia followed him into the cramped office, where a battered desk sat surrounded by stacks of paperwork and half-finished repair orders. A coffee maker sputtered in the corner, long overdue for a cleaning. Ethan cleared a chair for her. She sat carefully, wincing as the movement tugged at her ribs. He noticed. "You should not even be out of the hospital," he said. She smiled softly. "Maybe not, but I had to say thank you." In person, Ethan rubbed the back of his neck again, the gesture becoming something she was starting to recognize as his way of grounding himself. "Look," he said slowly, "I appreciate you coming. Truly. But whatever you are thinking of offering, I do not need anything." Amelia held up Lily's drawing. "You say that, but you left this behind. You left your jacket. You left before anyone could even ask if you needed help. That tells me that you were used to doing everything alone." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I am just trying to keep life steady for my daughter. That is all." She nodded, absorbing that quietly. "Your daughter has a very big heart," she said. "She gave me hope the moment I woke up." Ethan softened slightly, his eyes drifting toward the garage where Lily sat swinging her legs. "She is the reason I do everything. And she is why I want to help," Amelia replied gently. Ethan tensed again. Miss Hart, please do not turn this into a PR story. I do not want to be paraded around as the guy who pulled a millionaire out of a burning car. That is not who I am. Amelia flinched at the word millionaire, not because it was wrong, but because of the distance it created. This is not about publicity, she said. This is personal. You saved my life. Ethan leaned against the desk, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. If you want to say thank you, you already did. She took a breath, choosing her next words with care. I also want to give you something more. A chance to breathe. A chance to not drown under bills that should not be your whole life. Ethan froze. What did you say? She hesitated only a moment. I know you are behind on rent. I know the garage has been struggling. I know the landlord has been trying to push you out. Ethan's face darkened instantly. You had someone look into me? His voice was tight, wounded. It was the only way to find you, she said quietly. I am sorry if it feels invasive, but I did not want to let the man who saved me disappear. Ethan looked away, staring at the peeling paint on the office wall. I do not want charity, he said again, quieter this time, as if trying to convince himself as much as her. This is not charity, Amelia insisted. This is a partnership. Hart Automotive is developing a new safety program. Real-world evaluations by real mechanics, not corporate executives. I want you to be part of that. Paid fairly. With benefits. With stability. Ethan blinked, stunned. Me? I barely keep this place running. And yet you managed to pull me from a burning vehicle with steady hands and quick judgment, she said. That is exactly the kind of person we need. Before Ethan could respond, a small knock sounded on the door. Lily stood there, holding her coloring book against her chest. Daddy, are you mad? She asked quietly. Ethan's posture changed immediately, softening as he crouched down to her height. No, sweetheart. I am not mad. Amelia knelt too, ignoring the ache in her ribs. Hi, Lily, she said warmly. Thank you again for your drawing. It made me feel very safe. Lily smiled shyly. I am glad you are okay. Amelia felt her heart melt a little. I am okay because of your daddy. Lily nodded as if that made perfect sense. Then she gave Amelia a puzzled look. Are you going to be our friend? The room fell silent. Ethan looked at Amelia, unsure. Amelia met the little girl's hopeful eyes and answered softly. I would like that very much. Lily grinned, turning to Ethan. See, Daddy? She is nice. Amelia rose slowly, steadying herself. On the desk. I will not pressure you, she said to Ethan. Take your time. Think about it. I will come back tomorrow. Ethan opened his mouth to protest, but she was already heading toward the door. The sunlight caught on the bandage near her collarbone, the place where her seatbelt had pressed during the crash. She looked fragile, but determined. And for the first time, Ethan wondered if maybe this was not charity. Maybe this was fate handing him a chance he had never expected. As she stepped outside into the cool afternoon light, Lily tugged on Ethan's sleeve. Daddy, is she going to come back? Ethan stared at the empty doorway and felt something shift deep in his chest. Yeah, he whispered. I think she will. He had no idea that when she came back, she would not just change his life. She would change everything. The next morning, Ethan told himself he was not waiting for her, but he found reasons to step out of the garage every few minutes, wiping his hands on a rag and glancing down the street. Each time he did, he muttered something like, I am just checking the weather, even though the sky was clear and the sun already warm. By noon, Lily had started to notice. Daddy, she said with a knowing grin, you keep looking outside. Are you looking for the lady? Ethan scoffed, pretending to be offended. No, I am looking to see if the delivery truck is coming. Lily rolled her eyes in that dramatic way only children can, then returned to drawing tiny flowers in the corner of her coloring book. But when the familiar sound of an approaching SUV rolled down the cracked pavement, even Ethan's pulse quickened. The vehicle stopped in front of the garage, and Amelia stepped out, moving slower today, her hand pressed lightly against her ribs. She wore something simple again, a loose white blouse tucked into soft pants, but she still looked out of place among the rusted fenders and stacked tires. Not unwelcome, just different. Ethan stepped forward before he could stop himself. You should not be up and walking this much, he said. Your ribs need rest. She smiled. Good morning to you too, Ethan. Lily ran to her, waving excitedly. You came back. Amelia crouched, ignoring the pull in her side. I told you I would. Lily showed her a new drawing. Amelia praised every scribble like it was a masterpiece. Ethan watched the interaction, something soft settling behind his stern expression. After a moment, Amelia straightened and faced him. "Did you think about what I said?" Ethan crossed his arms, a barrier he clearly felt safer behind. "I did. And I do not want to be someone you rescue because you feel guilty." Amelia blinked. "Guilty?" "Ethan, I never said, you did not have to," he said, voice quiet. "People like you have entire teams to fix problems. People like me, we just try not to drown." Amelia stepped closer, her tone gentle but steady. "I do not pity you. I respect you. There is a difference." Ethan looked away. "It still feels strange." Her voice softened even more. "Ethan, I am not offering you money. I am offering you purpose. A chance to use your skills in a way that helps people. You saved my life because you ran toward the danger when no one else did. I want that strength in my company. I want you there because you earned it, not because I owe you." Ethan's jaw tightened, but his eyes flicked to Lily, who was still proudly showing Clara her drawing at the entrance of the garage. He swallowed. "And what about Lily? My schedule is all over the place. The school keeps calling about aftercare. Half the time, I cannot pick her up on time." Amelia nodded, as if expecting that answer. The position would come with regular hours, childcare benefits, health coverage, and legal assistance if you ever need it. Ethan stared at her. "Legal assistance?" "For custody," Amelia said carefully. Her voice carried no judgment, only awareness. Ethan's breath caught. He had never told her how bad the custody situation was. "How did you know?" "Last night," she said quietly. "I could not sleep. I looked at the drawing again, and I realized that a man who works this hard, who raises such a sweet daughter on his own, does not deserve to lose her because life has been unfair." Ethan looked at the ground, emotions warring behind his eyes. Amelia reached into her bag and pulled out a manila folder. "This is the contract. It is simple. No tricks. No legal traps. You would be doing work you are already good at, just with more support behind you." Ethan did not take it at first, but then Lily ran over and tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy, are we getting a new job? I want you to not be tired all the time." The words hit him harder than anything Amelia had said. He knelt down beside Lily, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I know, sweetheart," he whispered. When he stood again, he met Amelia's eyes. There was no pressure in her gaze, only hope and sincerity. Slowly, Ethan took the folder from her. "I will read it," he said. "I am not promising anything yet." Amelia nodded. "That is all I ask." She turned to leave, moving carefully. But before she reached the SUV, Ethan called after her. "Amelia." She paused, looking back. "Thank you," he said, the words rough but genuine. Amelia smiled gently. "You are welcome." She did not add anything else. She did not need to. As the SUV pulled away, Ethan held the folder in his hands and felt, for the first time in a very long while, that maybe his life was not closing in on him. Maybe something was finally opening up. That night, long after the garage had closed and Lily had fallen asleep on the couch with her coloring book still open beside her, Ethan sat at the small kitchen table in their apartment staring at the manila folder Amelia had given him. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the old refrigerator and the distant sounds of traffic outside. He opened the folder carefully, half expecting complicated legal jargon or hidden clauses, but the contract was surprisingly straightforward. It outlined the role she had described, the benefits, the steady hours, and the support he would receive. It did not mention publicity, special conditions, or obligations beyond the job itself. It felt honest. It felt real. And that scared him more than anything. He closed the folder and leaned back, rubbing his eyes. "Why me?" he whispered to himself. He knew the answer, of course. He had pulled her from the wreck. He had carried her across broken glass and smoke. But that did not mean he deserved a job at a company like hers. He was just a father doing his best, a mechanic barely getting by. "Daddy." Lily's sleepy voice broke through his thoughts. She stood in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Are you going to take the job?" Ethan lifted her into his lap. "I do not know yet, sweetheart. It would make you less tired," she said simply. "And maybe you would not be sad sometimes." Ethan felt his throat tighten. He hugged her close. "I will think about it." The next morning, he walked her to school, her small hand gripping his as they crossed the street. She skipped happily beside him, unaware of the storm that was starting to build around them. By the time he returned to the garage, the storm had arrived. A group of reporters stood outside the shop, cameras flashing, microphones raised. Ethan froze. Mr. Cole, is it true you saved Amelia Hart? How long have you two known each other? Is Hart Automotive giving you a job because of the accident? Ethan's blood ran cold. He backed away. No comment. Please, I am just trying to work. But they did not listen. They swarmed him, blocking his path. Did you pull her from the fire? Are you taking advantage of her gratitude? Are you using your daughter to gain sympathy? That last question hit him like a punch. He pushed past the crowd, his jaw clenched so tightly it hurt. Inside the garage, his boss slammed a newspaper onto the counter. The headline read, "Single Father Mechanic Saves Heiress. Coincidence or convenient opportunity?" Ethan felt sick. "I did not ask for this," he said. His boss sighed. "I know you did not. But the attention is bad for business. Customers are calling, worried about the chaos outside. I need this place to run smoothly." Ethan swallowed hard. "What are you saying?" "Take a few days off," the boss said. "Let this blow over." Ethan stared at him. "Unpaid, I assume." His boss did not answer. He did not need to. Ethan walked out into the back alley and leaned against the brick wall. His chest felt tight. He had never wanted fame. He had never wanted recognition. He only wanted to keep his daughter safe, to make enough money to pay for her school supplies and her meals and maybe, one day, a real bedroom for her. His phone buzzed aggressively in his pocket. Dozens of missed calls. Unknown numbers. A voicemail from his landlord demanding payment. A message from his ex-wife's lawyer requesting a custody reevaluation meeting due to recent media exposure. He felt his world collapsing. He sank onto an overturned crate, running a hand through his hair. "I should have never said yes to any of this," he whispered. "I should have never let her come back." But then he thought about Amelia's eyes, steady and sincere, the way she had spoken to Lily, the way she had carried herself despite her pain. She had not caused this media frenzy. The world had. And now the world wanted to paint him as the villain. The alley door creaked open. Clara stood there, breathless. "Ethan," she said, "you need to come with me." Something happened. Ethan stood. "What now?" "The board," Clara said urgently. "They are demanding a statement. Someone leaked that Amelia visited you. They are calling you a distraction, a liability. They are blaming you." Ethan felt the air leave his lungs. "Blaming me? I saved her life." Clara nodded. "I know. Amelia knows. But the board only sees headlines." Ethan's anger simmered beneath his ribs. "I did not ask for any of this. I did not ask her to show up at my garage or to give me a job." Clara looked at him with sympathy. "I know. But the narrative is spinning out of control." Ethan clenched his fists. "Then let them spin. I am done." He stepped out of the alley, walking away from Clara, away from the cameras, away from everything. He did not know where he was going, but he knew one thing for certain. Whatever hope he had felt yesterday was gone. And somewhere across the city, in a conference room filled with polished wood and stern faces, Amelia Hart was learning just how far the people around her were willing to go to keep Ethan out of her world. Amelia stood at the long conference table, her hands braced against the polished wood as the board members fired accusations like bullets across the room. Their voices rose one over another, sharp, cold, and dismissive, as if she were a child who had wandered into a meeting meant for adults. Her ribs ached with every breath, but she refused to sit. She refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing her weaken. "Miss Hart," one of the older members said, adjusting his glasses with deliberate impatience, "we have been more than patient with your emotional involvement in this situation. But what you have done is unacceptable." Another board member, a thin man with a clipped tone, added, "Visiting that mechanic without security, without authorization, without informing the public relations department. Do you realize the magnitude of the damage?" A woman across the table tapped a stack of papers. "Our stock dropped 2% this morning. Investors are calling nonstop. Reporters are camped outside our headquarters. All because of your reckless behavior." Amelia's eyes narrowed. "Reckless?" "Yes," the woman snapped. "You have created a narrative in which the heiress of Hart Automotive develops a personal attachment to a random mechanic from a rundown neighborhood. It looks inappropriate. It looks unprofessional. It looks like a liability," another added. The word echoed in Amelia's mind like poison. Liability. As if the man who saved her life was a danger. As if gratitude was a scandal. She straightened slowly, ignoring the pain in her side. Ethan Cole is not a liability, she said. He is the reason I am standing here. He risked his life without thinking for even a second about who I was. Her uncle, a powerful board member with a habit of pretending every idea he disliked was beneath him, leaned forward. And that is exactly the problem. You are making decisions based on emotion. You are letting a working-class stranger influence your judgment. Our family name cannot be tied to someone like him. Amelia's hands curled into fists. Someone like him? Her uncle shrugged. He is a single father with financial problems and unstable living conditions. He is exactly the kind of person opportunists write about. Amelia's chest burned with anger. He did not reach out to me. He did not seek attention or money. I found him. I went to him. Everything that happened afterward is because of me. That does not matter, her uncle said coldly. Public perception matters. Your actions have made him look like he is exploiting your vulnerability, and it reflects poorly on this company. Amelia stared at him, a slow, cold realization settling in her bones. This is not about the company, she said softly. This is about control. Her uncle stiffened. Watch your tone. You are angry because I made a decision without your approval. Because I did something that was human. Something that was real. Murmurs rippled around the table, but Amelia pressed on. You all sit here talking about liability, image, risk. Yet none of you have asked the most important question. She pointed to the accident report on the table. Why was I on that road that night? Why was I driving alone without security? It was because I left a dinner where I was told, again, that I had to prove myself to this board. That I had to bend to expectations that were never placed on anyone else here. I was overwhelmed, I was exhausted, and I made a mistake. But Ethan Cole is the only reason I survived that mistake. Her uncle's voice cracked with irritation. Enough. You will issue a public statement distancing yourself from him. You will stop visiting him. You will stop discussing job offers. You will follow the guidance of this board, or you will be removed from operational control until further notice. A heavy silence dropped over the room. Amelia felt something inside her shift sharply, like a thread snapping. No, she said. Her uncle blinked. What did you say? No. Amelia repeated, louder this time. I will not lie. I will not smear him to protect your fragile pride. I will not punish the man who saved my life because you are afraid of bad press. The board members exchanged shocked glances. Amelia reached for the tablet displaying the presentation scheduled for the afternoon press conference. If narrative is what you want, then narrative is what you will get. But it will be the truth. Her uncle rose from his chair. You are making a mistake. No, she said, her voice steady. I am correcting one. She gathered the materials, turned, and walked out of the conference room. Every step hurt, but every step felt stronger. She did not know if Ethan would ever trust her again, not after the chaos he had been dragged into. She did not know how the public would react. She did not know how the board would retaliate. But she knew one thing. She would not let the world destroy a good man. Not the man who saved her. Not the man who looked at her with sincerity instead of caution. And as she entered the elevator, preparing for the press conference that would change everything, she whispered to herself, this time, I will protect him. The press conference room was already packed when Amelia stepped onto the stage, cameras flashing like a wall of lightning. Executives sat in the front row with stiff expressions, waiting for her to follow the script they had approved. But she placed the script aside, lifted the microphone, and looked directly into the cameras. Her ribs ached, her breathing tight, but her voice was clear. Good afternoon, she began. I am here today to speak the truth. The room stirred with sudden interest. Last week, I was in a car accident caused by my own reckless decision to drive while emotionally overwhelmed. The official narrative says my safety team failed me. That is not true. I failed them. But someone else stepped in when it mattered. She held up a photograph of the wrecked car and the burned asphalt. I survived because a man named Ethan Cole pulled me from the vehicle seconds before the engine caught fire. A murmur rolled through the crowd. Amelia continued. Ethan is a single father, a mechanic, a hard-working man who has faced more in his life than any heiress born into privilege ever will. And yet he risked everything to save me, not knowing who I was, not caring who I was. Her voice thickened with emotion. He is not a liability. He is not a scandal. He is the hero. Cameras clicked faster. Board members shifted uncomfortably. I want to make it very clear, she said. He did not seek money. He did not seek attention. I went to him. I asked him to consider a job with our company. I asked him because I saw value in him not as charity, but as a leader. She paused, letting the tension settle. This company has claimed for years that we value integrity. Today, I am proving that we mean it. She pressed a button on the remote. A slide appeared behind her, Second Chance Mechanics Initiative. Under it, Program Director, Ethan Cole. Gasps filled the room. This initiative will open pathways for skilled workers, single parents, and individuals rebuilding their lives. It will provide training, benefits, and support that reflects real American values, not corporate elitism. And it will be led by the man who reminded me what courage looks like. A reporter stood. Miss Hart, is this personal? Amelia smiled softly. Everything important is personal. After the conference, the story exploded across every news outlet. But this time, the narrative was different. Headlines read, Heiress defends mechanic who saved her life. Hart. Automotive launches new program centered around working families. Single father named Hero offered leadership role. While the world absorbed the news, Ethan sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the television in disbelief. Lily stood beside him, gripping his hand. Daddy, she said your name, Lily whispered. She said you are the hero. Ethan felt something inside him tighten and loosen at the same time. No one had ever called him that before. Not in his entire life. That evening, there was a knock on the apartment door. Ethan opened it, and there she was. Amelia stood on the threshold wearing a simple jacket, her hair tied loosely, looking nothing like the corporate powerhouse from the press conference. She looked human, real, and relieved to see him. You should not be climbing stairs with your ribs still healing, Ethan said. And you should not disappear when the world gets loud, she replied gently. He stepped aside, letting her in. Lily ran to her, hugging her around the waist. Amelia winced but laughed. Hi, Lily. Ethan folded his arms, trying to stay guarded. Why did you do all of this? Amelia met his eyes. Because what happened to you was unfair. Because you saved my life, and the world tried to punish you for it. And because I am tired of living by rules written by people who have never sacrificed anything. He swallowed. You did not have to put yourself at risk for me. I did, she said softly, because it was the right thing to do. And because I care. His breath caught. She stepped closer, her voice lower. I do not know what the future looks like, but I want you in mine. If you want that too. Ethan looked down at Lily, who watched them with hopeful eyes. He had spent years protecting his daughter alone, believing love was something other people got to have. But here was a woman who had walked through fire and then walked right back into his life with intention. Slowly, Ethan reached into his pocket. He pulled out Lily's original drawing, the one the hospital staff had returned to him. It was wrinkled and faded, but meaningful. He placed it in Amelia's hand. This started everything, he said. It meant something to you. And you mean something to us. Her eyes shimmered, shining with warmth. Can I stay? For a while, she asked. For as long as you want, Ethan replied. Lily grabbed Amelia's hand and pulled her toward the couch. Daddy said he does not have many friends. Maybe we can all be friends. Amelia smiled. I would like that. They sat together, the three of them, the glow of the lamp casting soft shadows across the room. Outside, the world was loud, chaotic, judgmental. But inside, for the first time in a very long time, Ethan felt peace. Not because life had gotten easier, but because for the first time, he was not facing it alone. And as Amelia rested her head gently against his shoulder, he realized the truth. Sometimes the most life-changing moments begin with a single act of courage, a tiny crayon drawing, and a fire that brings two broken worlds together, not to destroy them, but to build something new. Something like family.